I'm Maya, 29, and the family I devoted 4 years of my life to just called me the help at their country club dinner. As I stood there holding their youngest, the same child who called me Mama, before he could say his own mother's name, I felt something inside me break. That night, I packed up the journal I'd kept since day one, the photos they never bothered to take, and the receipts for everything I'd bought for their children with my own money. 2 weeks later, when Vanessa Martin's Fancy Mommy blog suddenly went dark and Child Protective Services showed up at their door, everyone wanted to know what happened. What they didn't know was that the truth had been hiding in plain sight all along. Before we carry on, please hit the subscribe button and let me know where you are watching from in the comments. Growing up in a small town in Minnesota, I always knew I wanted to work with children. My mother was a kindergarten teacher for 30 years, and I spent most of my childhood watching her nurture little minds with the kind of patience that seemed almost superhuman. Our home was always filled with construction paper crafts, children's books, and the lesson plans my mother would work on late into the evening. I remember sitting at our kitchen table, watching her write each child's name on their folder with careful attention, adding a small personalized drawing for each one. "Every child deserves to feel special, Maya," she'd tell me. "Sometimes you're the only one who makes them feel that way." Those words stayed with me through high school, where I volunteered at the local daycare center, and through college, where I majored in early childhood education at the University of Minnesota. My professors praised my natural ability with children, the way I could calm even the most difficult toddlers and engage the shyest preschoolers. By graduation, everyone expected me to follow in my mother's footsteps and become a teacher. But something held me back. In a classroom of 25 children, how could I give each one the individual attention they deserved? I wanted something more intimate, a chance to really make a difference in a child's life. That's when I found the listing for the Martin family. It appeared on my screen like a sign from the universe, the answer to a question I hadn't fully formed yet. The ad read like a dream come true. Seeking dedicated nanny for 2 children, ages 3 and newborn. Live-in position in Westchester, New York. Competitive salary, private suite, travel opportunities. I applied immediately, not really expecting to hear back. After all, what would a wealthy New York family want with a fresh graduate from Minnesota? But 3 days later, I was on a video call with Vanessa Martin, lifestyle blogger extraordinaire, with over 2 million followers and more brand deals than I could count. Her perfectly highlighted hair fell in casual waves around her face, and the nursery behind her looked like something out of a magazine, all soft grays and whites with tasteful pops of color. She bounced her newborn son with practiced ease, while her toddler daughter played quietly in the background with wooden toys that probably cost more than my monthly rent. "We need someone special," she told me, her voice warm but businesslike. "Someone who understands that our children need stability while we manage our busy lives. My husband James works in finance, and I run my brand full-time. We need someone who can be flexible and completely devoted to our children." I should have caught the warning in her words, the subtle distinction between being devoted to the children and being at the parent's disposal. I should have noticed how she glanced at her phone every few minutes, how she barely looked at the baby in her arms, how the toddler in the background seemed to be performing for the camera rather than playing naturally. That I was blinded by opportunity, by the chance to escape my small town and start a new life in New York. "I'm extremely dedicated," I assured her, leaning forward eagerly. "My whole life has been about caring for children. I believe in creating routines that make them feel secure, but also in following their lead and nurturing their interests." Vanessa nodded approvingly. "That's exactly what we're looking for. Tell me, Maya, how do you feel about travel? We have homes in the Hamptons and Aspen, and we travel to Europe at least twice a year. You would need to come with us, of course." The idea of seeing the world while doing the job I loved was intoxicating. My family had never been able to afford more than camping trips to nearby state parks. I'd love that opportunity. I said, trying not to sound too eager. I've always wanted to travel. And social media? My brand is very important to our family, and discretion is essential. You would occasionally appear in content with the children, but we would need you to sign an NDA about our personal lives. I hesitated for a moment. I wasn't particularly active on social media, and the idea of appearing in videos seen by millions was intimidating. But I nodded anyway. I understand the importance of privacy. I'm not really big on social media myself, so that wouldn't be a problem. Vanessa seemed pleased with my answers. We discussed salary and benefits, which were far more generous than I had expected. A private suite in their home, health insurance, use of a car, 2 days off per week, and a salary that made my student loans suddenly seem manageable. It all seemed too good to be true. When could you start? She asked at the end of our call. We're hoping to have someone in place within the next 2 weeks. Our night nurse is leaving, and I have several important brand campaigns coming up. I could be there as soon as you need me, I said, already mentally packing my bags. 2 weeks later, I was on a plane to New York with everything I owned packed into 2 suitcases. I stared out the window as we descended, watching the sprawling city come into view. The enormity of what I was doing hit me all at once. The reality of moving thousands of miles from everything familiar to live with strangers and care for their children. But beneath the anxiety was excitement, a sense that I was finally starting the life I was meant to live. The Martins lived in a sprawling colonial home in Westchester County, set back from the road behind a wrought iron gate and surrounded by perfectly manicured gardens. The house itself was imposing, with its white columns and expansive windows, more like a museum than a family home. The taxi dropped me at the circular driveway, and I stood for a moment, taking it all in. This was where I would live now, in this mansion that could fit my entire childhood home in its foyer. Vanessa greeted me at the door, camera ready in a cream cashmere sweater and flawless makeup, even though it was barely 7 in the morning. Her smile was practiced, the kind that appeared in all her Instagram posts, reaching her mouth but not quite her eyes. "Maya, welcome to our home," she said, air kissing both my cheeks as though we were old friends. The scent of her expensive perfume enveloped me, something floral and sophisticated that made my drugstore body spray seem suddenly childish. "Come meet the children. Lily is so excited to have you here, and baby Noah just woke up from his nap." She led me through the house, pointing out rooms as we passed. The formal living room, untouched and perfect. The kitchen, gleaming with stainless steel appliances that looked like they had never been used. The family room, with its enormous television and carefully arranged toys that seemed more decorative than played with. Everything was immaculate, styled for photo shoots rather than family life. 3-year-old Lily was waiting in the playroom, a beautiful child with her mother's blonde hair and wide blue eyes. She was dressed in a miniature version of Vanessa's style, a tiny influencer in training. But beneath the perfectly coordinated outfit, I could see a child desperate for attention. She ran to me immediately, wrapping her arms around my legs and looking up with naked hope. "Are you my new friend?" she asked, her voice small and eager. "Mommy said you were coming to play with me." "That's right," I said, kneeling down to her level. "I'm Maya, and I'm going to be staying here to take care of you and your baby brother. Would you like to show me your toys?" That was all the invitation she needed. For the next hour, Lily showed me every toy she owned, speaking rapidly and clinging to my hand as if afraid I might disappear. She introduced me to her dolls by name, showed me her favorite books, and demonstrated how she could count to 20. The entire time, she kept checking to make sure I was watching, her need for validation painfully obvious. Meanwhile, Vanessa had disappeared, leaving me to get acquainted with Lily on my own. Eventually, a housekeeper named Elena appeared with baby Noah in her arms. "Mrs. Martin asked me to bring the baby to you," she said, carefully transferring the fussing infant to my arms. "She has a conference call with a sponsor." Noah was tiny, just 8 weeks old, with a red, scrunched face and a cry that spoke of deep discomfort. He squirmed in my arms, clearly unhappy, and I instinctively began to rock him, humming softly the way I'd seen my mother do with upset children. "He cries a lot," Elena said, watching me with a mixture of sympathy and wariness. "The night nurse used to get him on a schedule, but she left 2 weeks ago. Mrs. Martin doesn't like having staff in the house at night, so the baby has been adjusting." The way she said, "adjusting," told me everything I needed to know. This poor child had been left to cry himself to sleep, his needs secondary to his mother's comfort. I held him closer, trying to convey with my body that he was safe now, that someone was listening to him. "Has he been fed recently?" I asked, noticing the way he was rooting against my chest. Elena shook her head. "Not since early this morning. There's formula in the kitchen. I can show you." As we headed to the kitchen, with Lily trailing behind us still chattering about her toys, I began to understand what I had signed up for. These children weren't just in need of a caregiver while their parents worked. They were in need of someone who would actually see them, hear them, respond to their needs. They were starving for attention and affection, the most basic necessities that all children deserve. I was setting up Noah's bottle when James Martin appeared, dressed for work in an expensive suit and carrying a briefcase. He was tall and conventionally handsome, with the confident bearing of someone accustomed to being in charge. He looked harried, checking his watch as he entered the kitchen. "You must be Maya," he said, extending his hand for a brief, firm handshake. "Vanessa tells me you come highly recommended." "It's nice to meet you, Mr. Martin," I replied, trying to balance the fussing Noah while preparing his bottle one-handed. "James, please," he said, glancing at his children with what seemed like genuine affection, but also detachment, as if they were beloved pets rather than small humans requiring care. "We're counting on you, Maya. Vanessa needs to focus on her content, and I have a big deal closing this month. The kids are your priority now." And just like that, I became a full-time parent to 2 children who weren't mine. James left without interacting with either child. Not even a kiss goodbye. Lily watched him go with resigned disappointment, as if she hadn't really expected anything different. Noah continued to cry until I finally got the bottle into his mouth, at which point he supped desperately, his tiny hands clutching at the fabric of my shirt. That first day set the pattern for the months to come. I quickly established routines for both children, drawing on everything I had learned in my education classes and from watching my mother. Noah needed regular feedings and a consistent sleep schedule. Lily needed structured activities and plenty of one-on-one attention. Both needed affection, security, and the knowledge that someone was paying attention to their needs. Vanessa and James flitted in and out of their lives like beautiful, distant butterflies, appearing for brief moments of interaction before fluttering away to more important concerns. Vanessa would occasionally gather the children for photo shoots, arranging them in picture-perfect poses before handing them back to me the moment the camera stopped rolling. James would ruffle Lily's hair as he passed, or peek at Noah in his crib, but rarely spent more than a few minutes with either child before claiming work obligations. The house was often filled with people, a rotating cast of photographers, brand representatives, housekeepers, and gardeners, all orbiting around Vanessa's carefully curated life. But in the midst of all this activity, the children were often forgotten, their actual needs secondary to how they appeared in Vanessa's content. I became their advocate, their protector, the one consistent presence in their chaotic lives. I started keeping a journal after the first month, initially as a way to track Noah's feeding schedule and Lily's developmental milestones. I wanted to have something to show Vanessa and James, hoping they might take an interest in their children's daily lives. The first entry was simple, just times and quantities of Noah's bottles and notes about Lily's favorite activities. But as days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, the journal evolved into something more complex. It became a record not just of the children's development, but of their parents' absence, a documented history of neglect wrapped in privilege and justification. Entry 23. September 15th. Noah smiled for the first time today. A real social smile, not gas. I called V to tell her, but she was in a meeting. Told Jay when he got home, but he was distracted by work emails. Took a photo to show them later. But they were both out at a charity gala by the time the kids were in bed. Left the photo on V's vanity with a note. Found it untouched in the morning. Entry 43. October 12th, Lily had her first dance recital today. Practiced for weeks, was so excited to show her parents. I took video and photos. Neither V nor Jay attended despite promising Lily they would. She looked for them the entire time. Kept asking me where Mommy and Daddy were. I told her they had important work, she said. More important than me? I didn't know what to say. She cried herself to sleep tonight, still in her tutu. V and J came home at midnight from a dinner party. Entry 67. December 25th, Christmas morning. V and J went to Aspen last minute. Said they needed a break. Left presents for the kids that I wrapped and placed under the tree. Told me to take photos of them opening gifts and send them so they could post on social. Lily asked if Santa forgot to bring Mommy and Daddy home. Noah doesn't understand yet. Thankfully. Tried to make the day special anyway. Baked cookies, watched Christmas movies, FaceTimed my mom so the kids could have someone else to talk to. V posted the photos I sent with caption, "Missing our babies on Christmas, but Daddy and Mommy needed adult time." So blessed that our children understand the importance of self-care. Nearly threw my phone across the room. Entry 103, March 18th. Noah said his first word today. Mama. He was looking at me, not V. She wasn't home anyway. She's been gone for 3 days at a wellness retreat. Jay has been working late all week. Noah had a fever last night. And I stayed up with him. Paid for the children's Tylenol myself because V forgot to order more and took the credit card with her. Feeling conflicted. Should be happy that Noah is talking. But sad that he's confused about who his mother is. What happens when I eventually leave? Will they remember me? Or will I just be another adult who disappeared from their lives? I didn't just write down events, I documented everything. I kept receipts for every purchase I made for the children with my own money. Everything from medicine to birthday gifts that Vanessa and James forgot to buy. I took photos of the children daily, capturing moments that their parents missed. Like Noah's first steps or Lily losing her first tooth. I saved text messages where Vanessa or James canceled plans with the children last minute or asked me to work on my day off because they had emergencies. That usually turned out to be brunches or spa days. It wasn't that Vanessa and James were deliberately cruel. They weren't the type of parents who yelled or hit their children. In many ways, that would have been easier to define as wrong. Instead, their neglect was subtle, wrapped in expensive gifts and professional photographs, justified by careers and quality time that rarely materialized. They loved their children in theory, as concepts, as extensions of themselves. They just didn't seem to love the reality of them, the daily work of caring for small humans with needs and feelings and inconvenient timing. By the second year, I was no longer just the nanny. I was the children's primary caregiver, emotional support, and advocate. I attended parent-teacher conferences for Lily, taking careful notes to share with Vanessa and James, who always had conflicts. I took Noah to his doctor appointments, becoming so familiar with the pediatrician that she started addressing all her questions to me rather than asking about the parents. I planned their birthday parties down to the last detail, only for Vanessa to swoop in for photos before disappearing again. The children stopped asking for their parents when they were hurt or scared. They came to me instead. When Lily Fallon skinned her knee, she called for me. When Noah woke from a nightmare, it was my name he cried. I was the one who knew their favorite foods, their bedtime routines, their fears and joys. I was the one who celebrated their achievements and comforted them in their disappointments. That should have made Vanessa and James grateful. Instead, it made them resentful. The children are getting too attached to you, Vanessa said one day after Lily had a meltdown when I tried to take a rare weekend off. We were standing in her home office, a pristine white room dominated by ring lights and designer furniture. On the walls were framed magazine covers featuring her family, all smiling beatifically as if they spent every moment in perfect harmony. You need to create some boundaries. I almost laughed in her face. Create boundaries? I was the one who potty trained their daughter and taught their son to sleep through the night. I was the one who knew that Lily was allergic to strawberries and that Noah couldn't sleep without his blue elephant toy. I was the one they called for in the middle of the night when they had nightmares. But I bit my tongue and nodded. Of course, I understand. It's just that James and I are trying to be more present with the children, she continued, scrolling through her phone as she spoke. It's hard when they only want you. The irony was so thick I could barely breathe through it. More present? Vanessa hadn't attended a single one of Lily's school events that year. James had been on 3 international business trips in the past month alone. Their version of present meant appearing in carefully staged photos that suggested family togetherness, while having Elena or me actually care for the children off camera. I'm happy to step back whenever you want to spend time with them, I said carefully. Just let me know in advance so I can prepare them for the change in routine. She looked up from her phone, her expression hardening slightly. That's exactly what I mean, Maya. They're our children. We shouldn't have to schedule time with them, and they shouldn't need to be prepared to spend time with their own parents. I wanted to point out that children thrive on consistency and predictability, that Lily and Noah had learned through repeated experience that their parents were unreliable, that their anxiety about schedule changes was a direct result of Vanessa and James's inconsistent parenting. But I knew it wouldn't make a difference. In Vanessa's mind, the problem wasn't her parenting, it was my relationship with her children. I'll work on it, I promised, knowing that the real victims would be Lily and Noah, who would once again have to adjust their expectations to protect their parents' egos. Things got worse in the 3rd year. Vanessa's brand expanded, and she landed a partnership with a major children's clothing line. Suddenly, the children were valuable content. She wanted them camera-ready at all times, available for photo shoots and Instagram stories whenever she needed them. It didn't matter if they were tired or cranky or just wanted to play. They were props in her perfect life narrative. Entry 207. April 3rd, V scheduled another photo shoot today, 3rd this week. Lily is getting resistant, asked if she could just play with her friends instead. V told her that this was important for the family and that she needed to be a team player. Lily acquiesced but was clearly unhappy. Noah had a tantrum when the photographer tried to position him. V was embarrassed, told me to take him out until he could behave. Spent an hour walking around the garden with him while he cried from exhaustion. He's only 2. He doesn't understand why he has to perform on command. Later found V had posted outtakes of his tantrum with caption, "The reality of motherhood. Not always picture perfect, but always worth it." Comments filled with praise for her honesty and vulnerability. Nothing about the actual cause of his distress or how she handled it. Entry 236. May 18th. Lily's teacher called today, concerned about some comments Lily made in class. Apparently, during a discussion about families, Lily said that her parents only love her when the camera is on. Teacher wanted to know if everything was okay at home. I deflected, said Lily has a vivid imagination. What else could I say? That she's right? That her parents' affection is directly tied to how useful she is for their brand? Spoke to Lily privately later. Tried to explain that her parents do love her all the time. They just show it differently. She looked at me with those wise little eyes and said, "It's okay, Maya. I know they're busy. They have important jobs. A 6-year-old shouldn't have to rationalize her parents' emotional neglect." Entry 278. June 15th, made Lily reshoot a video 12 times today because she kept forgetting her lines. It was a paid partnership for a children's vitamin brand, and Lily was supposed to say how much she loves taking them every morning. Truth is, she hates them, and I have to practically bribe her to take them. By the 10th take, Lily was in tears, exhausted and frustrated. I tried to intervene, suggest we try again tomorrow, but V told me to remember my place. My place is with a sobbing 5-year-old who just wants to go swimming on a hot summer day. When V finally got the take she wanted, she immediately handed Lily to me and said, "Take her to the pool now, but make sure she doesn't get sunburned. We have another shoot tomorrow." No acknowledgement of Lily's distress, no comfort. Just concern for how she would look on camera the next day. Entry 301. August 3rd, Noah had a complete meltdown during V's livestream today. He's teething and hasn't been sleeping well. V was doing a partnership with a baby food company, ironically talking about the importance of responding to your child's cues and following their lead with feeding. Noah started crying in the background where I was trying to keep him quiet. V kept the smile plastered on her face, but her eyes were shooting daggers at me. The moment she ended the stream, she handed him to me and told me to fix this before her next segment. She didn't even ask if he was okay, if he was in pain, if he needed anything. Just fix this like he was a malfunctioning appliance rather than a suffering child. Entry 349. November 28th, Thanksgiving dinner at the country club. V insisted on dressing the children in matching outfits that were wildly impractical for a meal. Noah kept trying to unbutton his tiny dress shirt, and Lily's white dress was a stain magnet. V introduced me to her friends as the help and asked me to take Noah to the bathroom when he started fussing. I overheard her tell someone that hiring me was the best business decision she ever made because it freed her up to focus on what matters. Apparently, her children aren't what matters. Later, she posted family photos from dinner with caption, "So thankful for these little blessings and the precious time we spend together as a family." Comments filled with people envying her perfect life and hands-on parenting. If only they knew she spent a total of maybe 20 minutes interacting with the children the entire evening, and most of that was directing them to pose for photos. I should have quit then. I should have walked away and never looked back. But I couldn't leave Lily and Noah. They needed someone who truly cared about them, who saw them as children and not content. And I loved them as if they were my own. The thought of abandoning them to the cold reality of their parents' indifference was unbearable. Who would check for monsters under Lily's bed? Who would know that Noah needed his elephant toy and 3 stories before he could fall asleep? Who would abdicate for them when their parents' demands became too much? So I stayed, swallowing my anger and focusing on giving the children what their parents couldn't or wouldn't provide: consistency, attention, unconditional love. I created a bubble around us, a safe space where they could just be children without the pressure to perform or appear perfect. In my care, they were allowed to be messy, emotional, difficult, all the things that make children human and real. The breaking point came in my 4th year with the family. Lily was 7 now, and Noah was 4. I had been with them for most of their lives. I was there for first words, first steps, first days of school. I was the one who checked for monsters under the bed and kissed skinned knees. I was the one who knew their favorite books and foods and songs. It was a Tuesday evening in April. I had taken the children to the park after school, as I did most days. The spring air was warm, flowers were beginning to bloom, and a playground was filled with children enjoying the good weather. Lily had made friends with another girl her age, and they were playing an elaborate game involving the slide and a story about princesses. Noah was more cautious, staying close to me as he explored the sandbox. Then, as children often do, Noah took a tumble. He had been running toward the swings when he tripped over his own feet and fell, scraping his knee on the rough pavement. It wasn't serious, just a small abrasion, but to a 4-year-old, it was a catastrophe. His wail of pain and surprise cut through the pleasant afternoon air. I was at his side in an instant, kneeling down to his level and examining the injury. "It's okay, buddy," I soothed, wiping away his tears with my thumb. "Let's clean this up and get you a bandage." I had a first aid kit in my bag, as any experienced caregiver would. I cleaned the wound gently with an antiseptic wipe, applied a colorful dinosaur bandage, Noah's favorite, and held him until his sobs subsided into hiccups. The entire time, I spoke to him softly, acknowledging his pain while reassuring him that he would be okay. "You're so brave," I told him as he calmed down. "That was a big fall, but you're handling it like a champ." He looked up at me with trust in his eyes, the kind of absolute faith that children have in the adults who care for them consistently. "It doesn't hurt anymore, Maya," he said, though his trembling lips suggested otherwise. "Can I go swing now?" "How about we sit on the bench for a few minutes first?" I suggested, knowing he needed a moment to fully recover. "Then we can swing together." By the time we got home, Noah was his usual energetic self, the incident at the park already fading from his memory. But when we walked into the kitchen, Vanessa was there, filming a sponsored post at the kitchen island. She was talking about organic baby food, a product Noah hadn't used in years, holding up jars and describing the benefits of clean ingredients and sustainable packaging. She paused when she saw us, her eyes immediately locking onto Noah's tear-stained face and bandaged knee. "What happened?" she asked, putting her phone down with a frown. "He fell at the park," I explained. "He's fine now, just a small scrape." She moved closer to examine Noah, her expression a mixture of concern and irritation. "You should have called me. What if it had been serious? And why is he still crying? Did you even clean it properly?" Before I could defend myself, Noah wrapped his arms around my legs and said, "Maya fixed it. Maya always makes it better." The look on Vanessa's face in that moment was pure poison. A flash of hurt quickly replaced by anger, her eyes narrowing as she registered her son's preference for his nanny over his mother. She ended her recording and told the children to go upstairs and wash up for dinner. As soon as they were out of earshot, she turned on me. "We need to talk about boundaries again, Maya. The children are becoming too dependent on you. It's inappropriate." "I'm just doing my job," I said quietly, trying to keep my voice level despite the anger building in my chest. "Taking care of them when they're hurt is part of that job. No, your job is to assist James and me in raising our children, not to replace us. Noah should be coming to me when he's hurt, not you." I couldn't hold back anymore. 4 years of biting my tongue, of watching these children yearn for parents who were physically present but emotionally absent, of being the one constant in their lives while being treated like I was disposable, it all came pouring out. "He would come to you if you were ever there to come too," I said, my voice trembling with anger. "But you're not. You're too busy curating your perfect online life to actually live it. When was the last time you took Noah to the park? Or helped Lily with her homework? Do you even know what grade she's in?" Vanessa's face went white, then red. "How dare you? You're the nanny. You're an employee. You don't get to judge how I parent my children." "Someone needs to," I shot back. "Because from where I stand, you're not parenting them at all. I am." "You've crossed a line," she said, her voice dangerously quiet. "I've noticed it for a while now, the way you try to undermine my authority with my own children, the way you act like you know better than me, like you have some right to them. I'm not trying to undermine anything. I insisted. I'm trying to give your children what they need, what every child needs, consistent care and attention and love." "Love?" Vanessa's laugh was cold. "They're not your children to love, Maya. You're paid to care for them. There's a difference. Is there? Because I'm the one who knows that Lily is struggling with reading but won't tell her teacher because she's afraid of disappointing her. I'm the one who knows that Noah has, quote, nightmares about monsters, but really he's afraid you and James will leave and never come back. I'm the one who sits with them when they cry because you canceled plans with them again. Or because they made something for you that you didn't have time to look at. With each word, Vanessa's expression hardened further. I think we're done here, she said finally. You're fired. Pack your things and be out by morning. You can't be serious, I said, shock replacing anger. The children need stability. You can't just uproot me from their lives overnight. I can, and I will. This is my house and my family. You've clearly forgotten your place here, and don't think you'll get a reference. In fact, I'll make sure you never work in childcare again. No one will hire a nanny who gets so inappropriately attached to her charges. And just like that, 4 years of dedication, of love, of building a life with these children, was reduced to nothing. I was disposable after all, just the help, easily replaced when I became inconvenient. I was shaking so hard I could barely stand, but I managed to walk upstairs to my room without breaking down. Once inside, with the door firmly closed, I let the tears come. I cried for Lily and Noah, who would wake up tomorrow to find me gone. I cried for myself, for the family I had thought I was part of, for the love I had given so freely only to have it thrown back in my face. The children knew something was wrong. They could feel the tension in the house. Lily came to my room as I was packing, her small face serious and sad. Are you leaving us, Maya? She asked, her voice small. I couldn't lie to her. Yes, sweetheart. I have to go away for a while. Because Mommy is mad at you? Something like that. She climbed onto my bed and wrapped her arms around me. I don't want you to go. Who's going to read me stories and check for monsters? My heart broke into 1,000 pieces. Your mom and Gad will do that now. She shook her head, wise beyond her years. No, they won't. They're too busy. Noah joined us a few minutes later, crawling into my lap like he had done 1,000 times before. I held them both and tried not to cry. Tried to be strong for them one last time. I love you both so much. I told them. And that will never change, no matter where I am. We love you too, Maya, Lily said, and Noah nodded, his little face solemn. I read them one last bedtime story, tucked them in with extra hugs and kisses, and promised to keep them in my heart always. I didn't tell them I was leading forever. I couldn't bear to see the pain that would cause. Let them think it was temporary, a brief separation rather than a permanent loss. Let them have one more night of security before their world changed again. I didn't sleep that night. I packed my belongings and sorted through 4 years of memories. The journal I had kept, now filling several notebooks. The photos I had taken, thousands of them documenting the children's lives. The receipts I had saved, evidence of all the times I had gone above and beyond what any nanny should be expected to do. I found the Mother's Day card Lily had made for me the previous year, with, I love you, Maya, written in her wobbly handwriting. I found the clay handprint Noah had pressed for me at his playgroup, small fingers forever preserved in hardened earth. I found the family drawing Lily had made for school, where she had placed me right next to her and Noah, with Vanessa and James floating like distant stars at the edge of the paper. These were my real payment, the true measure of my time with the Martins. Not the salary, or the benefits, or the travel opportunities, but the love of 2 children who had given me their hearts because I had given them mine. In the morning, James was the one who drove me to the train station. Vanessa couldn't even face me. The children were still asleep, which was probably for the best. I don't think I could have walked away if I had to see their faces one more time. Vanessa told me what happened, James said as we drove in silence. She said you overstepped. Is that what she calls it when someone points out the truth? I asked, staring out the window at the passing suburban landscape, the perfect houses with their perfect lawns, all hiding their own imperfect realities. He sighed heavily. Look, Maya, you've been great with the kids. Really great. But at the end of the day, they're our children, not yours. You need to remember that. N. Do you remember it? I turned to look at him. When was the last time you went to one of Lily's school events? Or took Noah to the doctor? Do you even know that he's allergic to penicillin? Or that Lily is struggling with math? James gripped the steering wheel tighter but didn't answer. He knew I was right. You and Vanessa want the credit for being parents without doing the actual work, I continued, emboldened by the knowledge that I had nothing left to lose. You want to post perfect family photos on Instagram and talk about how blessed you are, but you don't want to deal with tantrums or homework or middle-of-the-night fevers. You want the title without the responsibility. That's enough, he said sharply. We pay you very well to help us manage our family while we build our careers. That's the arrangement. If you aren't happy with it, you should have said something sooner. A-double-E. Would you have listened? We both knew the answer to that. When we reached the station, he handed me an envelope. Your final paycheck, plus 2 weeks severance. I've also written you a reference letter. Despite everything, you were good at your job. I took the envelope but left the letter. I don't need your reference, James. I'm done with nannying. And I was. As the train pulled away from the station, taking me back to the city and an uncertain future, I made a decision. I wouldn't let Vanessa and James forget what they had done. Not just to me, but to their children. I wouldn't let them continue pretending to be perfect parents while neglecting the two beautiful, sensitive, wonderful children I had helped raise. I found a small apartment in Brooklyn with the money I had saved over the years. It wasn't much, but it was mine. A studio with exposed brick walls and a fire escape where I could place potted plants. It was the first place I had lived on my own, the first space that belonged entirely to me. I should have felt free, liberated from the golden cage of the Martins' home. Instead, I felt hollow, a vital part of me left behind with two small children who had become my whole world. I spent the first few days in a fog, missing Lily and Noah so intensely it felt like physical pain. I would wake up reaching for them, expecting to hear Noah's morning babble or Lily's footsteps running down the hall. The silence of my apartment was deafening. The absence of children's voices a constant reminder of what I had lost. I tried to move on. I applied for teaching positions, went on interviews, even had a few promising leads. I redecorated my apartment, bought groceries, did laundry. All the mundane tasks of adult life that I had neglected while caring for the Martins. But my heart wasn't in it. Every child I saw on the street made me think of Lily and Noah. Every picture book in a prenny store window reminded me of bedtime stories left unread. Every playground echoed with memories of afternoons spent pushing swings and catching children at the bottom of slides. I wondered how they were doing. If they missed me too, if Vanessa and James were stepping up, or if they had already hired a replacement. Had Lily remembered to take her reading folder to school? Was Noah still having nightmares? Who was checking for monsters and kissing skim knees? The not knowing was almost worse than the separation itself. 1 week after I left, I received a text from the Martins' housekeeper, Elena. We had always gotten along well. United in our shared experience of working for the family. She had been there even longer than I had. 7 years of silent observation and quiet support. They hired a new nanny already. She wrote, some young girl fresh out of college. Lily won't talk to her. Noah keeps asking for you. V acts like nothing is wrong. My heart ached at the image of Noah asking for me, of Lily retreating into silence as a form of protest. They were too young to understand why I had left. Too young to process the complex dynamics of adult relationships. All they knew was that someone they loved was suddenly gone, another in a long line of adult disappointments. How are they really? I texted back. Not good, Eleanor replied. Lily had a tantrum at school yesterday. Teacher called V, but she was at a photo shoot. Jay had to leave a meeting to pick her up. Noah isn't sleeping well. New nanny doesn't know his routines. I closed my eyes against the pain. This was exactly what I had feared, the children suffering because of adult conflicts. But what could I do? I had no legal rights to them, no standing to demand visitation or updates. In the eyes of the law, I was just an employee who had been terminated, nothing more. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about my journals, the photos, the receipts. All the evidence I had of what life was really like in the Martin household. Evidence that contradicted the perfect family image Vanessa projected to her followers. Evidence that might, if made public, force Vanessa and James to reconsider their priorities. I had never been vindictive before. I had always believed in taking the high road, in walking away with dignity. But this wasn't just about me anymore. It was about Lily and Noah. Two children being emotionally neglected by parents, too self-absorbed to see the damage they were doing. So I made another decision, one that would change everything. There was a popular parenting forum I had followed for years, a place where mothers and nannies shared stories and advice. It had a large, active community, including many who followed mommy bloggers and influencers like Vanessa. I knew that anything posted there had the potential to spread widely, to reach the very audience Vanessa depended on for her livelihood. I created an anonymous account and started writing. I spent 4 years raising 2 children who weren't mine, I began. I loved them like they were my own, cared for them when they were sick, celebrated their milestones, dried their tears. And then one day, I was told I had overstepped and was fired on the spot. This is the reality behind the perfect Instagram family you all admire so much. I didn't use names, but I included enough details that anyone familiar with Vanessa's brand would be able to connect the dots. I described the house, the children's ages, the mother's occupation, the father's finance job. I shared excerpts from my journal, describing birthdays and holidays spent without parents, school events missed, and promises broken. I posted photos, carefully edited to protect the children's identities, but clearly showing the same house and backyard that appeared in Vanessa's posts. I shared receipts for medications and necessities I had purchased with my own money because Vanessa had forgotten or couldn't be bothered. I told the truth. The whole truth. About what life was really like for Lily and Noah. How they had learned not to ask for their parents when they needed comfort. How they had become props in their mother's carefully constructed online narrative. How they were loved, conditionally, only when it was convenient or profitable. I didn't do it out of revenge. Though I can't deny that a small part of me wanted Vanessa and James to feel some fraction of the pain I was feeling. I did it because I believed that public pressure might accomplish what private conversations could not. Might force them to see their children as more than accessories to their lifestyle. I didn't expect much to come of it. Maybe a few sympathetic comments. Some shared outrage from other nannies who had experienced similar situations. But then something unexpected happened. The post went viral. Within 24 hours, it had been shared thousands of times. People were tagging Vanessa in comments, asking if she was the mother in question. Her latest Instagram post was flooded with comments asking about the allegations. The parenting forum was buzzing with speculation and debate. Some defended Vanessa, arguing that all working mothers rely on childcare, and that I was probably exaggerating out of spite. Others shared their own experiences with absent parents, or the disconnect between social media presentation and reality. The conversation quickly expanded beyond Vanessa specifically to broader issues of authentic parenting, the ethics of featuring children in sponsored content, and the exploitation of domestic workers. And then came the confirmation. A former assistant of Vanessa's, someone I had never met but who had apparently left on bad terms, commented on my post with a single sentence. I worked for this family for 6 months, and every word of this is true. That was all it took. The story exploded. Other former employees came forward with their own stories. A babysitter who had filled in for me on my rare days off. A house cleaner who had witnessed Vanessa yelling at the children for interrupting a filming session. A hairstylist who had overheard her complaining about how inconvenient it was to have children during Fashion Week. Vanessa's carefully constructed image began to crumble. Brands started to distance themselves from her. Comments on her social media turned from adoring to accusatory. People were asking questions she couldn't answer, pointing out discrepancies in her perfect mom persona that she couldn't explain away. 3 days after my original post, she issued a statement on Instagram. A perfectly lit video of her sitting in her immaculate Bourdain and some living room, wearing a soft pink sweater that made her look vulnerable and sincere. I've been made aware of some disturbing allegations made by a former employee, she said, her voice trembling slightly. I want to assure my community that these claims are completely false. My children are my world. Yes, I have help, as many working mothers do, but I am fully present and engaged in my children's lives. This person was let go for inappropriate behavior and is clearly seeking revenge by spreading lies about my family. It might have worked, if not for what happened next. In the background of her video, barely audible but clear enough for anyone listening carefully, came Noah's voice. When is Maya coming back? You promised she was just on vacation. Vanessa's face froze for a split second before she recovered, but it was too late. The damage was done. The comment section exploded with people pointing out the slip, questioning her story, demanding answers. The next, DEI, her main sponsor, a luxury children's clothing brand that had built an entire campaign around her family, announced they were pausing their partnership to evaluate the situation. Other brands quickly followed suit. Vanessa's income stream was drying up before her eyes. I didn't feel the satisfaction I expected. I felt sad and worried. Not for Vanessa and James, but for Lily and Noah. I hadn't considered how my actions might affect them, how the public scrutiny might impact their already complicated lives. Would they understand what was happening? Would they blame themselves, as children often do when adults are in conflict? Would they be caught in the crossfire of Vanessa's damage control efforts? But then came the message that changed everything again. A private message on the forum from someone claiming to be a caseworker with Child Protective Services. We've received multiple reports regarding the Martin children, it read. Based on the evidence you've shared and statements from other witnesses, we're opening an investigation. We'd like to speak with you about your experiences with the family. My heart raced as I read the message. This was never what I intended. I wanted to expose Vanessa's hypocrisy. Yes, but I never meant to potentially separate the children from their parents. For all their faults, Vanessa and James weren't abusive, just neglectful and self-absorbed. The thought of Lily and Noah being placed in foster care, separated from everything familiar, was horrifying. I called the number provided, my hands shaking as I dialed. A woman answered, introducing herself as Rachel Chen, a social worker with the New York State Office of Children and Family Services. She verified her identity and explained the process to me. We're not looking to remove the children from their home, she assured me, her voice calm and professional. That's always a last resort, used only in cases of immediate danger. What we're investigating is a pattern of emotional neglect, which, if substantiated, would result in mandated parenting classes, therapy, and regular check-ins from our office. I agreed to speak with her in person, to share everything I knew about the Martin family. We met at a coffee shop in Manhattan, a neutral location where I felt comfortable speaking freely. Rachel was in her 40s, with kind eyes and a notebook full of carefully organized questions. She listened without judgment as I told her everything, from the small daily neglects to the larger pattern of using the children as props for financial gain. I emphasized that while the children were often emotionally neglected, they were never physically harmed. I explained that what they needed wasn't removal from their home, but parents who would prioritize them over Instagram likes and brand deals. Our goal is always family unification when possible, Rachel assured me. But sometimes parents need a wake-up call to understand what their children truly need. Your testimony, combined with the other reports we've received, gives us a clear picture of the situation. We'll be conducting home visits and interviews with the parents, the children, and other caregivers. Ooh. Will the children know I was involved? I asked, worried about adding to their confusion and pain. We don't disclose our sources, she said. And we're very careful about how we talk to children, especially young ones. We focus on their experiences, not on adult conflicts. The investigation lasted 2 weeks. During that time, Vanessa's online presence went dark. No new posts, no stories, no updates. The parenting forum buzzed with speculation about what was happening behind the FIRD. Scenes. Had she been canceled? Was she planning a comeback? Was there any truth to the rumors that Child Protective Services was involved? I stayed away from the speculation, focusing instead on rebuilding my life. I accepted a teaching position at a progressive preschool in Brooklyn. A place where children were respected and valued for themselves, not for how they performed or appeared. I started setting up my classroom, planning activities, imagining a future where I could use what I had learned with Lily and Noah to help other children. Then Elena texted me again. They're both home all the time now. V isn't filming anything. Jay took time off work. They're actually eating dinner together every night. CPS has been here 3 times. I felt a mix of emotions. Guilt for causing such upheaval, but also a glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, this would be the wake-up call Vanessa and James needed. Maybe they would finally see what truly mattered. Finally understand that their children needed their presence and attention more than their financial success or social media following. A month after my original post, I received a letter in the mail. No return address. But I recognized the handwriting immediately. Lily's careful, 7-year-old script. Dear Maya. It read, I miss you a lot. Noah does too. He cries sometimes and asks for you. Mommy and Daddy are home more now. Mommy doesn't use her phone at dinner anymore. Daddy reads me stories at bedtime. It's different, but still not the same without you. Can you come visit sometime? Love, Lily. I sat on my small apartment floor and cried, the letter clutched to my chest. I hadn't expected to hear from the children again. I had resigned myself to being a memory in their lives. Someone they might think of occasionally but would eventually forget as they grew older. The fact that Lily had found a way to contact me, that she still wanted me in her life, was both heartbreaking and healing. I didn't know how to respond. Could I reach out to Vanessa and James? Would they even speak to me after what I had done? And if they did, what would I say? I'm sorry for telling the truth? I'm not sorry for caring about your children more than you did? The next day, I received an email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line simply read, We need to talk. Maya, it began. This is James Martin. I've been trying to find a way to contact you since everything happened. I know you have every reason to ignore this, but please hear me out. Vanessa and I had been doing a lot of soul-searching these past few weeks. The CPS investigation was humiliating but necessary. It forced us to confront some hard truths about our priorities and our parenting. We've made changes. Vanessa has stepped back from her online presence. I've reduced my hours at work. We're in family therapy. The children miss you terribly. Would you be willing to meet and talk? Not about coming back to work, but about being part of their lives again in some way? They need you. And I think, in a way, we do too. I read the email 10 times, trying to decide if it was sincere or just another attempt to salvage their reputation. Was this the same James who had coldly told me to remember my place just a month ago? The same Vanessa who had threatened to make sure I never worked in childcare again? Could people really change that much in such a short time? In the end, I decided it didn't matter what their motivation was. What mattered was Lily and Noah. If there was any chance of being part of their lives again, of continuing to be a source of stability and love for them, I had to take it. I agreed to meet James at a cafe in the city, neutral ground where we could talk openly. He looked different when he arrived, less polished, more human. There were circles under his eyes and a humility in his manner I had never seen before. His expensive suit had been replaced by jeans and a simple button-down shirt, as if he had finally stepped out of the role of team doll. Successful finance executive, and into that of ordinary father. "Thank you for coming," he said as he sat down across from me. "I wasn't sure you would." "I'm here for Lily and Noah," I said simply. "Not for you or Vanessa." He nodded. "That's fair. More than fair, actually." He took a deep breath. "What you did, sharing your story online, it blew up our lives. Vanessa lost all her sponsorships. My colleagues look at me differently now. We've had to answer questions from people we thought were friends, from family members, from strangers on the internet. I'm not going to apologize for telling the truth," I said firmly. "I'm not asking you to," he replied, surprising me. "I'm thanking you." Now, it was my turn to be shocked. "Thanking me?" He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of genuine distress. "We were terrible parents, Maya. We were so caught up in our careers, in Vanessa's brand, in my deals, that we completely lost sight of what actually matters. It took having our failures exposed to the world for us to see what we were doing to our children." He looked up at me, his eyes wet. "You were right. About all of it. We wanted the title of parents without the responsibility. We left you to raise our children and then resented you when they loved you for it." I didn't know what to say. This was not the conversation I had expected to have. "The CPS investigation was closed last week," he continued. "No evidence of abuse, just some strong recommendations for family therapy and more parental involvement. We've already started both. Vanessa is offline completely, focusing on the kids. I've cut back to 40 hours a week at work, no weekends. We're learning how to be real parents, not just for the cameras, but in the moments that matter." "And the children?" I asked, because that was all I really cared about. "How are they?" "They miss you," he said simply. "Lily asks about you every day. Noah still looks for you when he wakes up in the night. They love you, Maya. You were more of a parent to them than we ever were." The words I had waited 4 years to hear, acknowledgement of what I had known all along, should have felt like victory. Instead, they just made me sad for all the time lost, all the moments Vanessa and James could have shared with their children but chose not to. "What do you want from me, James?" I asked finally. "We want you in the children's lives," he said. "Not as a nanny, but as someone who loves them and whom they love. Someone like family. You could visit. Spend time with them. Be part of their lives in a way that works for everyone. Vanessa and I have discussed it, and we both agree. It would be good for Lily and Noah." I was skeptical. "And Vanessa is okay with this? After everything that's happened?" He smiled ruefully. "Vanessa has changed. We both have. When your entire life falls apart in public, it forces you to reevaluate everything. She's the one who suggested reaching out to you." I found that hard to believe. Vanessa, who had been so jealous of my relationship with the children, who had seen me as a threat rather than a partner in their care, now wanted me back in their lives? It seemed too convenient, too perfect a resolution to our conflict. "Why should I trust you?" I asked. "How do I know this isn't just another performance, another way to rehabilitate your image?" "You don't," he admitted. "You have no reason to trust us. We've given you every reason not to. All I can tell you is that we're trying to be better. To do better. And part of that is acknowledging the important role you've played in our children's lives. They need you, Maya. And if you're willing to give us another chance, we'd like to show you that we've changed. I didn't answer right away. I needed time to think, to consider what was best for the children and for myself. I had just started rebuilding my life, had accepted a teaching position at a preschool for the fall. Did I want to open this door again? To risk more heartbreak? I need some time, I told James. This isn't a simple decision. Of course, he said, sliding a piece of paper across the table. Here's our new contact information. Take all the time you need. As I walked home from the cafe, my mind was a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. Part of me wanted to run back to Lily and Noah, to scoop them up in my arms and never let them go. Another part was afraid of getting hurt again, of investing more of my heart in a situation I couldn't control. What if Vanessa and James reverted to their old ways once the crisis had passed? What if they grew resentful of my relationship with the children again? What if I was setting myself up for even more pain? I called my mother that night, the kindergarten teacher who had taught me everything I knew about caring for children. What should I do, Mom? I asked after explaining the situation. Can people really change that much? Sometimes it takes a catastrophe to make people see the truth, she said wisely. The question isn't whether they've changed, but whether they'll stay changed once the crisis has passed, and whether you're willing to take that risk for the sake of those children you love. What would you do? I pressed, needing guidance from the woman who had always been my moral compass. I would set clear boundaries, she said after a moment's thought. I would make it clear that I was there for the children, not to make the parents feel better about themselves. And I would be prepared to walk away again if necessary. But this time, with a plan in place to maintain contact with the children regardless of the parents' feelings. I thought about it for days, weighing my options, considering all possible outcomes. I spoke with my new principal, explaining the situation and asking if I could have a flexible schedule for the first few months to accommodate visits with Lily and Noah. I consulted with a family lawyer about what rights, if any, I might have as a non-relative who had been a significant caregiver. I even spoke with Rachel Chen, the CPS caseworker, who advised me that maintaining a relationship with the children could be beneficial for them, especially during this transition period. In the end, though, it wasn't a rational decision, but an emotional one. I loved Lily and Noah. I had been there for their first words, first steps, first days of school. I couldn't imagine not being there for all the firsts still to come. And if there was even a chance that Vanessa and James had truly changed, but they were finally becoming the parents their children deserved, I wanted to support that transformation, not stand in its way. I called James and agreed to his proposal, with conditions. I would visit the children regularly, but I would not be at their beck and call. I would be treated with respect as someone who loved the children, not as an employee or a convenience. And at the first sign that they were reverting to their old ways, I would walk away, and this time, I would take more than just my journals and photos. I would take legal action. James agreed to everything without hesitation. "We just want what's best for the children," he said. "And you're part of that." We arranged my first visit for the following weekend. I was so nervous I could barely sleep the night before. What if the children had changed in the month I'd been gone? What if they had adjusted to my absence and moved on? What if they were angry at me for leaving? But all my fears melted away the moment I walked through the door of the Martin home. Lily ran to me the moment she saw me, throwing her arms around my waist and holding on as if she'd never let go. "Maya, you came back," she cried, her face buried against my stomach. "I knew you would." Noah, more reserved at first, stood back watching until I knelt down to his level. "Hey, buddy," I said softly. "I've missed you so much." His little face crumpled, and he launched himself into my arms, burying his face in my neck. "Maya home now?" he asked, his voice muffled against my skin. "I'm visiting," I explained gently. "I'll come see you lots of times, but I have my own home now." He pulled back to look at me, his expression serious. "Promise?" "I promise," I told him, and I meant it. Vanessa watched our reunion from the doorway, her face a complex mix of emotions. When the children finally let me go, she approached hesitantly. "Thank you for coming," she said, and I could tell the words cost her. "They've missed you terribly." "I've missed them too," I replied, maintaining a polite distance. She nodded, understanding the boundaries I was establishing. "Would you like to stay for dinner? James will be home early. We eat together as a family now, every night." The house felt different as I moved through it with the children. Gone were the perfectly staged rooms designed for Instagram photos. In their place were toys on the floor, artwork on the refrigerator, evidence of lives actually being lived rather than just documented. Lily's backpack lay open in the hallway, homework spilling out. Noah's building blocks were scattered across the family room floor, a half-finished tower standing proudly in the center. Dinner was simple, homemade pasta that Vanessa had prepared herself, not the catered meals of the past. James arrived home as promised, greeting each child with genuine affection before acknowledging me with respect, but not presumption. As we ate, Lily chattered about school and her friends, Noah made a mess with his sauce, and no one reached for a phone to document the moment. It was just a family dinner, ordinary and precious in its simplicity. After the children were in bed, having insisted I read their bedtime stories just like old times, I sat with Vanessa and James in their living room. The atmosphere was tense, but not hostile. "We owe you an apology," Vanessa began, surprising me with her directness. "Not just for how we treated you at the end, but for how we took advantage of your love for our children for years. We were selfish and blind, and we hurt you and them in the process." "Why the sudden change?" I asked, still not entirely convinced. "Is it just because your brand suffered?" She flinched, but didn't deny it. That was the wake-up call, yes. But what kept us awake was realizing what we almost lost. Not the sponsors or the followers, but our children. The CPS investigation forced us to see ourselves through outside eyes, to recognize how far we had strayed from the parents we thought we were. She looked down at her hands. "I don't expect you to forgive us right away, or maybe ever, but I hope you can see that we're trying to be better, for Lily and Noah's sake." "That's all I ever wanted," I admitted. "For you to put them first." James joined the conversation. "We understand now why you did what you did. Sharing your story wasn't just about getting back at us, it was about protecting the children. We see that now." I nodded, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. "I never wanted to hurt you or damage your reputation. I just couldn't stand by and watch the children suffer anymore." "We know," Vanessa said quietly. "And in a way, you saved us all." Over the next few months, I visited the Martin home regularly. I watched as Vanessa and James struggled and grew in their new commitment to active parenting. There were missteps and backsliding, moments when old habits threatened to resurface, but there was also genuine effort and progress. Vanessa found it particularly difficult to adjust to life without the constant validation of social media. There were days when she was irritable and withdrawn, days when the temptation to return to her old life was clearly strong. But she persisted, finding new meaning in the genuine connections she was building with her children. James struggled too, especially with the emotional demands of parenting. He had spent so many years defining himself by his career success that being present for bath time and homework help felt alien to him. But he was trying, learning to see his children as people, rather than responsibilities to be managed. The children thrived under their parents' newfound attention. Lily's confidence grew, her anxiety lessened. Noah became more independent, secure in the knowledge that his needs would be met. They still loved me, still greeted me with enthusiasm whenever I visited, but they were no longer desperate for my attention as they had once been for their parents. Vanessa eventually returned to social media, but with a completely different approach. Gone were the perfectly staged family photos and the carefully curated moments. Instead, she began sharing honest reflections on her journey as a mother, acknowledging her past failures and documenting her efforts to do better. Her new authenticity resonated with followers in a way her previous perfection never had. "I was building a brand on a lie," she told me one day as we watched the children play in the backyard. "I was so focused on how things looked that I forgot to pay attention to how they felt. I missed so much, Maya. So many moments I can never get back." "But you're here now," I reminded her. "That's what matters to them." James found a better balance between work and family, prioritizing dinner with his children over late nights at the office. He coached Lily's soccer team and took Noah swimming on weekends, building relationships with his children that had been missing for years. "I always thought I was working for them," he confessed during one of my visits. "Providing a good life, financial security. But what they needed wasn't more money or a bigger house. They needed me, just me, present and engaged. And me? I started my teaching job as planned, finding fulfillment in working with young children in a classroom setting. I brought the lessons I had learned with Lily and Noah to my students, creating a nurturing environment where each child felt seen and valued. I continued to visit Lily and Noah regularly, becoming something like an aunt or a family friend, a consistent, loving presence in their lives without the complicated power dynamics of the past. The story I shared anonymously remains online, a reminder of where we all began and how far we've come. Sometimes, when I read back through my old journals, I can hardly believe how much has changed. The children who once cried for me when their parents weren't there now run to Vanessa and James first, secure in the knowledge that they will be heard and comforted and loved. That's all I ever wanted for them. All I ever tried to give them. And in the end, despite the pain and upheaval, despite the public exposure and private reckonings, we all got what we needed. The children got parents who truly see them. Vanessa and James got a second chance to be the family they always claimed to be. And I got the peace of knowing that my love for Lily and Noah wasn't in vain, that it ultimately led to the family they deserved. I'm Maya, 29, and I was once told I was just the nanny to two children I loved as my own. Today, I'm still part of their lives, but in a healthier way, watching them grow surrounded by the love and attention they always deserved. I never set out to change a family when I shared our story, but sometimes the truth is exactly what people need to hear, even when, especially when, it hurts. And sometimes, from that pain comes healing, growth, and a new beginning none of us could have imagined.